Visible? Audio loud and clear?
Good to go.
Okay. All right. But first things first, thank you for having me today, Frankie. Uh, you know, uh, there are two screens, so I might be looking here and there, but that doesn't mean that I'm not focusing. I'm total focus is on this meeting for next 30 minutes. Absolutely. I might be switching screens here. Good afternoon, good evening, to all the folks who have joined from different parts of the world. No, like I said, thanks, Frankie, for organizing all these conferences. Some of the fantastic, speakers have showed their work, have shared their suggestions. Absolutely valuable. And I'm here today to talk about my topic, which is generative AI and navigating the path to success. What do I really mean when I said generative AI navigating path to success? Really is, generative AI is different than your normal AI, which exists, right? Generative AI, the meaning itself, the name itself says, it is to generate, whereas your traditional other sorts of AI is more in terms of learning from the data that you would share to that model, and then it would, either do a clustering or it would segment a particular zone or all of that stuff, right? Generative AI is different in that terms. Now, the topic that I've chosen, like I said, is navigating path to success. One of the very key aspects of generative AI to be really good in it and be really successful is how good you are in terms of your prompt engineering, right? Prompts play a lot of key role in terms of how you would visualize, either in the fashion world or in any architecture design or anything that you would potentially imagine, right? It has to, you visualize it first. You try to have your imaginations put up onto that onto the generation of that image. And how do you do that? The vehicle is really the prompts here. The prompt engineering is really the vehicle that would deliver your imaginations into some sort of an image or a video or any other format, right? So that's where we want to focus the next 20-25 minutes on really the prompt engineering, what prompt engineering is all about, the significance of prompt engineering, influences on the responses that we would generate, the challenges that we as creators would see, using these prompt engineering prompts and all of that, and what are some of the best practices that at least I have seen in my experience and reading through a lot of other articles as well. I've tried to lay down some of those best practices. In the realm of all of these, we should not definitely forget being responsible and what responsible AI really is about. And then I do have some sample AI generated image and videos that I want to share. That's pretty much what we're gonna learn in next, or learn and share in next 20-25 minutes. You have my contact there. Whenever you want to reach me, please feel free to hit me up. I have the same name on LinkedIn as well. More than happy to connect, collaborate, and share. Absolutely. So let's start this. Okay. So what is prompt engineering? So I want to highlight really here, the two keywords here. One is crafting and other is language models. If you would see the definition that I've provided there, it says prompt engineering is a process of crafting specific instructions for language models. I want to shift your focus a little towards these two words. One is crafting, other is language models. Prompt engineering is also referred as prompt crafting, in a way that in a way how you craft the prompt so that the language model can understand what it should do. That crafting is really crucial here. Language model is typically an AI model that's designed to understand and generate human languages. So these two are really key. For a language model to react in a way that you want the model to react, you should be really good in terms of how you craft the prompt. So that's really crucial, and that's what the prompt engineering is all about. There's transformer architecture is a type of, there are deep learning models. There's got natural language process models. All of these models really help for you to generate your imagination, but your crafts have to be really on the spot and perfect. So what is the significance of prompt engineering? It relies on these five factors. One is control, second is relevance, third is context, and fourth is avoid bias, and five is efficiency. By control, what I really mean is, by crafting specific prompts, we can guide models' response, ensuring that the generated content aligns with the desired outcomes. So you really need to have the control with the crafting mechanisms, for the model to generate the responses. Relevance, whereas relevance is more in terms of how well structured your prompts are to help obtain accurate and relevant response. So you really have to be relevant in terms of how we craft a prompt. In the future, in the future slides, you would see the examples of what these really means with the prompt engineering, and citing some of those examples there. We'll talk about that. But at this point, these are really key. Context. It's always good to give context around what we want to generate. Let's say if you want to generate a design which is inspired by either a Greek mythology or an astrology, all of these factors, you really have to provide the context within the prompt for you to generate what it should be really generating. And then false is avoiding bias. A thoughtful prompt design can really help manage mitigate potential biases in the generated content. A lot of times, often, you all might have seen there's a certain amount of biases that might be there within an image. How do you avoid those biases? You have to be really thoughtful in terms of how you want to provide that prompt, so that all these potential biases are avoided, and we reach to a stage that we really want to see within that image or a video. Now, efficiency prompts, with effective prompts, we always, of course, improve the efficiency, but also what helps is really it decreases the iterations that we do. So the more efficient your prompt is, of course, your value is you're reaching your value quite quicker, but also you are reducing those iterations that you would otherwise end up doing with some bad prompts there, right? So these are the 5 key things that we all should be really aware of whenever we write prompts. You really have to have that control. You need to be relevant. You need to add that context. To make sure the generations are avoiding the bias. How do you do that? We do that being more specific within that prompt, thoughtful prompts, and then efficiency, bringing those efficiency in that prompt. These are really gonna be key. What we are seeing now here is an example. In this example, we are trying to see the influences on responses, a well-crafted prompts. How does a well-crafted prompt influence the accuracy, relevance, context of the generator? All of those that we have spoke in the earlier slide, we are now going to see how a well-crafted prompt is really going to influence the accuracy, right? There are 2 images on the screen. One, the left-hand side, you would see a white color, a vehicle, a car, which is being parked. That's what we can get from this. On the right-hand side, you would see a lot of vehicles, and a white color vehicle car parked along with a lot of vehicles. It seems to be like a parking lane. It seems to be a city. It's a street within a city where there's this parking lanes, and then there's this car. But what's special in this picture is really this is the only white car within all the other cars that are there in this picture. So this gives a lot of context in terms of how we wanted to visualize things, rather than this being just showing a view of just a white car, but the context is missing. What we want to influence the model, that influential components to the prompts are missing in this image. So it's an example. It's an example to identify how a well-crafted prompt is really going to help. That's how we would have it here, and we'll continue on best practices. Now, before we go to best practices, there are certain challenges that we all would have gone through, have seen, is really finding the right phrasing and fine-tuning prompts for our specific tasks. It's actually quite important. The challenges that we really see within those prompts that we have either generated in this context or any of those prompts that we all have done as part of our work is really finding those right phrasing. And how do you fine-tune your prompts for a specific task? uh, you know uh, with the context. Now think about this challenge with the context of this that we spoke about: control, relevance, context, bias, and efficiency. Now, the challenge is here, and how do we overcome the challenge is through these best practices. Now these best practices really talk about finding the right phrasing and fine-tuning prompts for a specific task. The best practices that I have identified over my experience and going through some of the works of others is really be specific. Be specific. The more specific, the more customized reasoning engines work. So you have to be really specific in terms of how you provide that prompt, and then provide context in terms of it has to be supplemented with an example which derives the context of that image, or visualization, or the imagination that you're trying to pull up, right? It has to have that context. Use clear language. you know a clear language is really very helpful here, as much as possible with proper grammar. If you're creating a prompt for a specific industry or a use case, a prompt for a specific industry or use case using examples from that industry or use case have always helped. So, and then experiment. Experiment is really about, we're not going to get it in the first try or the second try, but then you try it with different prompts so that you reach to a point at a stage where you would get what you're actually looking for. So these four are really key best practices that have been identified in terms of how to reach to that right phrasing and fine tuning of prompts. So it's these are really key. If we go back to the challenge, finding the right phrasing and fine tuning prompts for a specific task, this has been a challenge that we all have been facing as to what should be the right prompt for this. Why am I not getting an image which, I would have, let's say if I'm generating a design for a dress or a costume, which is inspired by, a certain mythological components and all of that. You write your prompt, you generate image one, and then you write your prompt again, you generate image two. Now there might be some components of image one that might be really good that you want to have it, but that's not the final product that you're looking for. Your image two might have certain aspects or attributes, but that's not the right product as well. Then how do you make sure that you're achieving, or you're reaching to a point where you know what the product that you're looking for is really by applying these best practices. Of course, we all know about seeding techniques that you can seed, get the value of the seed, and apply it to other image to derive certain attributes and components from that first image. All of that, of course, those are technical terms, but these are more in terms of generic way of how to reach to that final stage of a best practice of writing a prompt. Now, while we do all of these, best practices are great. We have our challenges. We know what the five different parameters are regarding the prompt. We have learned that, but we also have to be very cautious in terms of what responsible AI really means. In what ways can we harness this new technology to address our challenges? That has to be really, we have to be really cautious and careful about this. How can we mitigate or handle any potential issues it might generate? How can we exercise control over technology of such formidable capability? Now this AI is great, generative AI is great. There are a lot of good resources there for us to learn. You have skilled the prompt engineering, but at the end of the day, we all have to be really cautious in terms of how we really use these tools. These tools are great, but you have to be responsible in terms of using these tools. Right? It's a great power that we have. Now, I have found an article that I'm going to share with you all that talks about A to Z of responsible AI. It's on LinkedIn. It's there on the public platform, so it's viewable for everybody to go through it. But then I've copied four of those here into this deck so that I can talk about it. Is E, F, H, and V. Out of these A to Z. E is for everyone. I mean, AI should be accessible for everyone. Fairness is the principle. You bring fairness into the game is really going to be key in terms of how you derive to your prompts and all of that. H is for humans. It is made for humans to be more productive. It's not that it's gonna come and take over humans and all of that. So it's essentially made for us to be more productive. Viewpoints, you have to be really cautious in terms of how you include the diverse viewpoints within your prompt, so that whatever you generate is more diversified. It's critical to develop and train that have that culture of having those diverse viewpoints within our prompts or any other generations that we do. So it's being responsible is really going to be key when it comes to prompt engineering. What I have next is sample work that I want to share and walk you through some of the sample work that I have added. But I want to just go through what we have seen so far is really what prompt engineering is about. It's all about crafting, large language models, all of that, and what some of the significance of prompt engineering is really. It lies within the control, relevance, context, avoid bias, and efficiency. We have seen the influences on how a good prompt and more context-based prompt would look like, and how is this really helpful. It's right here. And then finding challenges. We know what the challenge really is in terms of this prompt is. I've heard a lot of people come to me and say that, hey, I'm trying to visualize this, but not really able to generate it either in Midjourney or any other tool. A lot of times the challenge really is within how clear your prompt is. So we back engineer, we try to fine tune what we are trying to derive and how we have achieved to what we are seeing and all of that. Really, the common challenge that I've seen so far. And then some of these best practices that I've always suggested folks who have reached out to me is, follow these, to the core, and it has really helped. And the responsible AI that we have seen. An interesting part of this deck is all the images that you see on the left-hand side are really, all of these are generated by Midjourney. Uh, so that's something that I want to share is following up is the sample work. Sample work is some of these pieces of designs are generated by Midjourney and Runway tool. Got an I'm not really sure if this audio plays, but if you're able to see this video, this is generated by a runway by the runway tool, but otherwise the rest of these images are generated pretty much with the mid journey. Yeah, that I think is pretty much that I have. Let me just go ahead and uh, how do I do this? I hope I have not bored
Yeah,
you guys.
great. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Do we have any questions from the audience? Please do send them through. So tell us, what are your next steps as you kind of move more and more into the AI space and try different tools? What are you looking forward to learning and experimenting with?
The next big thing that I'm working on really is on a storyline and
Mhm.
trying to use AI. I'm writing a draft at this point. This fiction involved story.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I've I've write probably half of the book I've written so far, but I'm drafting it. And then what I'm planning is really to take these drafts that I've written, take it to AI, make it more polished version of it, and
Mhm.
then use those polished version into storytelling and probably draft it into a book. That's what my next goal really is. Next big thing that I'm working on is really writing a book. But how do I do that? I'm writing a draft, then use AI to polish it more grammatically and more English and all of that stuff, and then take it to tools like Midjourney and all of that to generate some of those images so that I can use those within this book. And then I'm trying to basically get a book, the storyline that I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. And will it be a typical book in terms of having like the hero's journey and that sort of arc of a storyline, or how are you thinking
So,
of writing the book in the first place?
look, thanks for asking that, Frankie. So the storyline that I've picked really is a science fiction.
Mhm.
Uh, Science fiction involves a lot of the space travels and all of that. It's an interesting storyline that I've picked up. Let's see how that goes. Halfway through, I've wrote like what 80 or maybe 76 scenes so far. I'm still working on it. It still needs to continue probably this month too. Once I have all those scenes that I've written in the book, then I will take them to tools like ChatGPT and other tools to polish those scenes, and then bring it to Midjourney to have some of those images generated, and then take those images, embed it into these storylines, and then publish the book. That's my next roadmap.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So book, uh, animation, all of those sorts of elements, really, really super exciting. And where will it be set? Have you thought about that as well?
Right now, the place where I'm looking for is really to get this book out with a physical copy, and then really look for places like a Kindle or somewhere where I can publish it. But it's a long journey, though. It's very early stages at this point. But yeah, that's how I am planning to do it. Apart from that, there's a lot of you and I had conversations earlier as well. There's a lot of tools that that are there to explore. There's video conversions that we're working on. A lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of tools there to really explore and see which one really fits well. I think we are at a stage where there's a lot coming towards us. At times it might be overwhelming, but then you have to really go through all of these to identify which ones are really good to be used and which ones are mature enough to be used and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really looking forward to the, next generation of storytellers and filmmakers and
Right.
authors. I think
Yeah.
these tools are incredible, and we're going to get not the typical stories. We're all used to the sort of Marvel, cliches. Um,
Right.
so it'd be nice to have some more unusual, quirky stories come to the forefront.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. And you have been talking to a lot of folks, this, you have these great conferences going on. How do you see, let me ask you this, how do you see folks leaning towards this AI, generative AI concepts? So what are some of the, things that you have observed from these conferences? Or otherwise, you run a lot of work, right? So what have you observed as a trend?
I've observed a trend in terms of with change in general with these tech innovations. There's the hype bubble of early adopters kind of coming on board with NFTs. We definitely saw that, and the hype
Hmm.
bubble lasted for quite some time because people thought this was the next big thing that they could, get rich quick. And certainly there will be that happening with AI and generative AI. It's the next big thing, all sorts of entrepreneurs jumping onto the bandwagon. So that's kind of the first phase. Um,
Hmm.
and then you have enterprises looking at bringing it, utilizing AI internally, but they also have to look at all of the issues around IP, AI ethics, data privacy, all of that side of things. And eventually there will be, I think, three main clusters of
Hmm.
technology. So there'll be the ecosystem, which is around Microsoft,
Hmm.
OpenAI, and all of those tech tools. So any enterprise company that are on Microsoft will kind of get swallowed into that ecosystem. Then you've got the Google
Hmm.
side, which we haven't really seen that much being released yet by Google, but that's certainly coming. They've got access to, if you've got Gmail, if you've got and you use any of those applications, it will make sense to work with them. And then you've got the open source side of things. So you've got Hugging Face, and you've got all of these open source applications. So I would say I'm probably more in the open source world because that's where you'll get the most innovation. And I'm starting really from the visual component, looking at images, looking at AI for music, or AI for 3D or for film. But of course, there are so many other applications as well. With LLMs, you're also looking at avatars. Um,
Right.
every day there are new use cases, and I just get a bit distracted by all of the potential avenues that it could go down. But yeah, my aim at the moment is to do events, and
Right.
then to teach as much as possible and to
I've
learn.
seen I've seen this chat from Rupert. Says Google Imagine is available on API through Vertex AI. Please feel free to come off mute, Rupert, if you want to share more. Um, yeah,
Hi, sure. Can you hear me okay?
absolutely.
I think I can. Oh no. You can turn on the video if you like, Frankie. Yeah, I'm seem to be ex-Googler who has been. I had a keen eye, and I had the pleasure of using a lot of these tools before they actually were released. So oh my goodness, it was called.
Is it just
Oh,
me,
Bard was
or
called
maybe
something
we
before
lost you?
Bard, but it was very interesting to try it. And then Imogen was our image generator, which, if I'm being honest, felt a little bit behind the other ones out there. But when they did photographic, they looked
Mhm.
super accurate. Anyway, that tool is available. Well, Bard, of course, is available universally now, and our image. It's interesting. We're trying to focus on this. I shouldn't say we anymore. I get out of that habit. It's focused on unique images that are sort of non-infringing, potentially, and also the ability to take images as an input and generate quite sophisticated captions in there as well. So it's a tool not really for the creative set so much as app developers. So if you want to create, you could use it to do personalized advertising or something like that. So they're pitching it very much as an enterprise tool at this stage, but it's out there, and that's I think their significant thing. They're looking for the business users, and they're attempting to keep it as infringement free as possible. So worth a look if you've got an app you're working on or something like that.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to be doing a conference on advertising and e-commerce, so I think that would be a really amazing use case and presentation. If you want to deliver a presentation on it, that would be great as well. But I know you've got a lot on your plate, so not to worry if not.
I'd love to, Frankie.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm now going to pass over to Astrid. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Frankie.
No worries. So where are you calling from today?
I am calling you from right outside of Washington.